The trend as we head into December is snow. Look at the new ensemble data that's coming out here from the European. Actually, yeah, this is the European. Tons of snow. If you zoom in a little bit closer here, I know this is 25 members. What we're seeing necessarily with this isn't exact totals where I think it's going to snow, but look at all the color that we're seeing across the central U.S., up towards the Great Lakes, multiple members dumping heavy bands of snow. When you start to see this grow, as someone who worked in TV and I would put a forecast together long range, first of all, despite what you may think, I despise doing long range forecasts because they're not that great. But when I start to see signals, I would even mention it when I was working in broadcasting. I would say, look, there are signals that things are changing, and they're there, especially for the West. And I think across the northern plains, some cold weather up into this region. And here's the interesting thing. If we can put some snow down, now you actually start to develop cold over the West, and then that could potentially slide further to the east, almost like it just starts to push as we get that cold continental air feeding back with the snow that's on the ground. More to come on that. NOAA's seeing this too, by the way. This is the Climate Prediction Center this is the 8 to 14 day. Much colder all the way into Texas. Now, across the southeast into the northeast, I think fairly warm here with our ridging through the 8 to 14 day time frame. NOAA's seeing this. More to come on that. I think we'll start to push that cold east once we get it in the west. Let's talk about the snow, and let's talk about where it's going to be over the coming days. First of all, this is a wide picture look. So, a lot of Canadian friends watching. I can't mention every province in Canada. I can't mention every state or city in the United States. But if you're watching, hopefully this shows everyone so you can kind of follow along. Thousands of new subscribers are joining the channel. If you're new, if you've been here for a month or so, comment. Let me know down below where you're watching from. I always love to see where the viewers are coming back to the channel from. If you're a new viewer, if I'm showing up casually, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel. If you're an OG, welcome back. All right, that's my pitch for the day. Let's get on to the weather. Here comes the rain back into Texas as we head into Monday. That slides east. It's cold up here across northern Canada into the Northwest Territories, and we have a piece of energy sliding out of the Canadian Rockies. That's going to put some snow down. Banff, Calgary, further east across the U.S.-Canadian border. So along the Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba, U.S. border, we're going to see some snow, and there could be some decent snow here too, starting to pile up. Further to the east, the rain increasing. We're going to dive in a little bit closer in just a second with some snow maps and all of that, but I want to show you the players before we talk about that. This continues to push to the east, so the rain starts to move into parts of Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama. Said I wasn't going to say states, but there's a few for you today. The snow pushing east too across the Canadian border into North Dakota, and it's interesting to watch this low start to get amped even more today than what we maybe have seen yesterday. So some heavier snow looking a little more likely for northern Minnesota into the Arrowhead. And then the cold wind picks up behind this. So St. Louis, Kansas City, it's going to turn cold in these areas as we head into the week. And then we'll start to see this continue to push into the south. Now a decent low spinning up, cold front moving east, colder air dropping into Texas, also into the south by Wednesday. This is a big travel day. I know a lot of you may be hitting the road. No snow in the east, good travel, although it will be a little wet. Nice travel conditions, although quite windy, though, here across the central U.S. and then across the west. Quiet into the southwest, but another system bringing rain and snow into the Pacific Northwest. Let's keep marching this out ahead in time. This low is amping up. This is going to bring some snow here into Ontario. It's also going to bring the lake effect snow machine into play here as we head toward Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, which is where we are right now. The time above me is Eastern. Windy, cold, and the lake effect's going here around this big low that's now spinning north up through eastern Canada. Temperatures dropping here as well, and will be colder here in the east as we move toward Friday, Black Friday, big shopping day. Gone are the days when you line up early in the morning, right at 4 a.m. or 1 a.m. and get ready for the big sales. Those of you who are maybe a little older may know what I'm talking about. Those days are gone as the brick and mortar starts to see some decline. You know, not a finance channel here. Let's continue to move on. But you may be doing some shopping on Friday, and that's what we're looking like. This is an interesting look. Here comes the change, friends, as we head toward Friday and Saturday. Arctic air starts to surge out of Western Canada. A 1052 millibar high. This very dense, pushing south as we head towards Saturday, or really Saturday it starts, and then into Sunday. This system will be interesting to watch too as it spreads toward the Great Lakes. This could bring a swath of snow along it as the front drops south. We'll have to see how all this aligns. And now look at this. You've got high pressure dropping south. You've got upslope flow going here into Colorado, Wyoming. This puts some heavy snow into the Front Range, into Denver, which we've not seen this year. National Weather Service, Denver and Boulder, talking about this yesterday. I haven't looked today to see if they're still talking about it, but they're saying, hey, the chances are growing. We're talking about next Sunday, this Arctic air driving south into North Texas. And are we setting up the stage for an ice storm across the southern plains? Today, my confidence might be growing a little bit as your front stalls. Now you've got some overrunning moisture happening here. Further north where it's cold, a cold, fluffy snow possible, but maybe some ice from Texas and Oklahoma, Missouri. And look, it tries to do it again as this Arctic air settles into the west. We're pretty cold into this region. Warm air surging along the east coast. No snow for you, I think, at this point. And now it stays cold in the west, and this is where your pattern starts to shift. And is this setting up another snow here moving toward the Great Lakes? I'm going to let this just roll out in time. Again, this is an operational run of the European. The interesting thing is when you look at these snow totals, look at this. This is the European from last night. This is the GFS, okay? Significant difference if you're looking exactly where you live, but the fact that they're both putting out some heavy snow toward the end of their runs and even toward the late and middle part of their runs, pretty interesting. These are the snow totals through Monday, but look what happens. There's that quick system that's sliding through the northern U.S., but once we get into next week, this is when things get really interesting. I don't know if I'm going to bet the farm on any of this to the south, but my confidence is growing, and we started with the ensemble guidance, which is showing that across the central U.S., at least a lot of color showing up, and that's what you want to see when you want to start to look at, is it actually going to snow? Here's a quick look over at the GFS, which it also shows the snow. Someone commented yesterday, where are you seeing this data? I don't know, the two biggest global models that we look at, GFS and the European, showing it. National Weather Service talking about it, at least in Denver and Boulder. So we're definitely seeing the signs. And you're talking about the chance, it may be low when you're looking long range, for some big snows into December. The consensus, as the title of the video says, is growing in my mind. I think I see it among the models. Here's the short-term snow. We've got some falling into western Colorado. The snow here is going to really pick up in the coming week or so. There comes that system sliding east a couple of inches into the prairies here, into also the Dakotas. Not necessarily South Dakota, mostly into North Dakota. A little bit of snow into the mountains, but look at the change that happens in the west as we get toward next week. They need some snow in Colorado. The ski resort's struggling here, also into Utah. Let's look at the west first, and then we'll work our way east. A little bit of snow falling into the mountains of Colorado as we head through Sunday and Monday. That moves east, and here comes the snow we've talked about here into the Canadian Rockies, which, by the way, looking beautiful up towards Banff. Talked about that area, big ski area there, a couple of them, and it's just a beautiful part of North America. Some more snow falling, and then this drops south and east. Here comes some more rain and snow into the west, so Vancouver getting a little active, also into Seattle. Rain, though, and then the snow into the high elevations of the Cascades. And temperatures here, I'd argue, maybe just a little bit above average. Here's a closer look at the snow again into the Rockies. Quite heavy possible. At least it could get heavy heading into next weekend, into the first of next week. And there's a closer look at that swath moving across the northern part of the country into the Great Lakes. Okay, let's back up and look at temperatures across the west. Watch this cold. And by the way, this is going to be the instigator as we head into the following week. We're seeing numbers really start to fall. Look at this into northern parts of the U.S., down into the 20s and 30s. There comes the real cold as we head into next weekend. You'll start to see it surge south. I think the GFS, as always, is overdoing the cold. But the fact that it's showing lows 30 below zero, highs near barely getting above zero, and that cold pushing south, it's worth paying attention to at this point. Further to the east, here comes the rain moving into Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas. Some of these storms could get strong as we go into Texas. Let's look at the Storm Prediction Center. By the way, this is a live stream. If you ever miss these streams, you can always come back and check them out at any time. But yeah, some of these into Texas could get strong here today with some damaging winds. Some hail also possible out of these. The tornado risk not zero, but it's not off the charts. That would be for today. As we head into tomorrow, that risk spreads east now into places like Texarkana, southern parts of Arkansas, also into northern parts of Louisiana and East Texas as we get some damaging winds, some hail there as well. And I think the tornado risk may be just a little bit higher heading into tomorrow. So two sides with what's going on with this system, with the severe weather across the south. Look at the temperatures for today and into tomorrow. Warm. There's your numbers for Sunday right there. All the way up into the northern plains, pretty warm. We do start to see that cool weather start to settle in at first across the northern border of the U.S. and Canada, but staying really warm across the deep south into Texas, 70s, even 80s showing up on the board here. And then as we head into Tuesday, here comes the front. Look at the temperatures dropping. Lows on Wednesday morning below freezing. Kansas City, north into Iowa, Minnesota, barely getting into the 20s on Wednesday, much colder. We're also getting cold across Texas. I would say not cold, but at least colder. There's your lows in the 40s. Highs, instead of the 70s and 80s, we're in the 60s and 70s, at least along the Gulf Coast. And then as we head into the weekend, a pretty sharp dividing line begins to set up. Look at that cold single digits and teens. Right in here, you're going to see something happen. Some kind of low pressure, some sort of storm, I think, is going to form. You just have so much of a difference in temperatures, it's almost hard to ignore at this point. Further to the east we go on the European, the rain moving in. Let's back it up into Sunday because there is a little bit of snow into the northeast through Sunday night into Monday morning. That dries out. And we see high pressure slipping off to the east. Winds turn southerly. We warm up. Rain on the way. Toronto, Montreal, all the way to New York City, Boston, Philly. The rain is on the way here. Little bit of wintry precip across northern Maine and eastern Canada. And here comes the snow behind our system on Wednesday. Much colder and windy into Michigan. Some lake effect. It's not going to be the perfect pitch for some heavy snow off of Lake Michigan, but the winds are going to bring that moisture in, and then we start to pick that lake effect too up across the UP of Michigan, which it could be heavy at times. And also here into parts of Ontario, as the winds come off of Huron, we bring some more moisture across Lake Erie, and that snow starts to dump here into northwest PA, western New York. Some heavy snow possible. The winds may actually shift a little bit to favor places like the Tug Hill Plateau to get some snow. Now, here's where things get really interesting. Okay, so we're looking at next weekend, that next system sliding east, right? So I'm going to back it up to show you where we are in the central U.S. with this type of system and how it drops in. Here comes the cold. Here comes the next system driving north. Snow developing across Colorado with the upslope flow. Do we see an ice storm setting up across the southern plains? The European says, yes, we do. The GFS says, look out. Okay, it looks different, but it's similar in my mind with that Arctic cold. Your dividing line somewhere here, warm and unstable on this side. There could be some strong storms, and now you're looking at something really setting up. The AI, oh boy, we didn't want to go there, but the AI also picking up on the idea that something could be developing across this area as we head into next week. More to come on that. Let's go back and we'll continue that back toward the Great Lakes because, again, that's where we kind of stopped there. I want to make sure we continue that out through the east because once we see that cold and that whatever it is sets up next week, it could be one heck of an ice storm. I think it does start to drive north and east. We'll start to see that precipitation pick up across Indiana, possibly Chicago, some snow, maybe into Michigan. Someone asked me about Michigan. Are we going to see some snow? I think if you're going to see something, this is a pretty decent setup to get it. You may be on that boundary line between the warm and the cold, but notice the cold doesn't want to surge very far to the east on the European overnight. The GFS is in this camp too. This looks weird to me, this undercutting cold with overrunning precipitation with ice. Just looks weird. I don't know that it plays out like this. We may end up, I think, with more of a low pressure developing with more rain, snow type of a setup, but we'll see. Let's go back to the GFS here because we showed you the similarities there across the central U.S. too. This is the GFS heading into next weekend. There comes the snow. I mean, both of them, the European and the GFS, putting that snow into Chicago, into Michigan, northern Ohio, and then it drives it east. Still warm, though, along the coast. Sorry, New York, Boston. I mean, it's just, this is not your setup for snow. And then as we head into the second and the third, this may be more reflective of what I think is going to happen. You saw that overrunning moisture that the European was picking up on. The GFS has it too, but not as much ice. You're seeing more of a storm develop more of a mid-latitude cyclone, then that wraps up and then turns cold and snowy, and the GFS does crazy things like put hurricanes in the Gulf. I call it the goofus sometimes, the GFS. I think that stands for that. Okay, that's enough of the video. If you made it this far, boy, that means you've really connected here, and I hope you'll subscribe and help us out here on the channel. Thousands of you have done so again over the last couple of weeks. First of all, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Channel's nothing without you guys. Stay safe. We will see you next time.